So today we're going to take some time to explore Kala Vedic Astrology software. This is a software that I've used for years, probably at least around 15 years now. And I get a lot of questions asking me, what is the best Vedic astrological software? And by far, I think Kala actually is my favorite. It might be just because I'm used to it, but when I've looked at other Vedic astrological software, it doesn't seem as intuitive as Kala is to me, and unless I just haven't explored it well enough, which is possible, it also lacks some of the core features that I appreciate about Kala. Now, the great thing about Kala is that no matter what zodiac you use, no matter what Ayanamsa you use, no matter what type of screen you want to use or style of chart you want to use, Kala can provide that. So for example, if we want to use a different style of chart, well, we just push F2, the F2 button, and it'll cycle us through a round wheel chart. It'll take us to the North Indian chart, and it'll take us to the South Indian chart. So you can use either one you want. You can also, if you like, use both the North and the South Indian chart. So many people prefer one to the other. And Kala now has this great option where you go to the screens menu and you just hit South and North, and it'll take you to this screen. And sometimes you'll see these little white boxes here when you first get Kala. Well, you can add whatever you want there. You can add any kind of Varga. You can add the dignities in Vargas, which is a really wonderful feature. And there are also other screens too that you can choose. So you can have the main screen. And on the main screen of Kala, we have the birth chart. And typically we'll have the Navamsha, aspected planets, dignities, and Vargas. And then here we have the degrees of each planet, the dignity, the Rashi it's in, the Nakshatras, the Padas, the Taras, the Baladi Avashtas, the speed of the planet. So there's quite a bit that you can get just by looking at this main screen. And this is also customizable. So if I want to make this the Dashamsha instead of the Navamsha, I can just by simply right-clicking on the little white box in the middle. This screen comes up and picking a different Varga. We also see that we have Vimshotari Dasha cycles, which can go up to the 5th level, which is basically all you need because it's all there is. We see there's the Charanavamsha Dasha, which is used a lot for Rashi Dashas in Jaimini astrology. And with the Dasha system itself, when we left-click on the Dasha Vimshotari here, we can see that there are other Dashas that we can choose as well. And in the Nakshatra Dashas, this will give us options for the different Nakshatra Dashas that are available for this chart. So many people just simply use Vimshotari, and that's understandable. But there are also many other Nakshatra Dashas that you can use that could be applicable to an individual's chart. And there are more than this. These are popping up only because these are the only ones, the Nakshatra Dashas, that are applicable to this particular chart. Now, some other things to be aware of that are very useful. Well, with Kala, we have an Avashta's calculated screen. So those of you that are familiar with the Lajatati Avashtas, if you want to know their power and their strength, well, we get this screen, and it tells us exactly the strengths to delight, the strengths to starvation, or how much a planet's getting hurt here in red. The planets are giving to each other, the relationships between the planets. And we can do this for the Rashi, the birth chart. We can do it for any Varga, the Chaturtamsha, the Navamsha, the Trimsamsha. And so you'll see you'll have the chart here. And then over to the right, it'll give the calculations of how much a planet's getting hurt or how much help a planet is giving. And just like on the main screen, you can right-click on the center number within a Varga, and you can pick a different Varga. And over here on the right, it'll give you the calculations for the Lajatati Avashtas. So if you want to learn more about the Lajatati Avashtas themselves, in the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2, there's a chapter on the Lajatati Avashtas. Ernst Wilhelm has some classes on the Logitati Avashtas. There's a class at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com under the downloadable courses on the Logitati Avashtas. So these are very helpful. And the fact that you can see the strength of every planet, how it's affecting every other planet in any Varga, well, that's really the delight to me of having this Avashtas calculated screen. There's a Yoga Judgment screen. Now, the Yoga Judgment screen is going to tell you, based on the Ishta, Kashta, the Shubha, Ashubha, how these all add up in the totals, even related to the cusps, the Bhavachalita cusps, how strong yogas are going to be within the chart, how planets are going to be affecting each other by way of their yogas. So the Yoga Judgment screen is an excellent screen. There's compatibility. Well, we're going to have to pull up another chart for that, but basically what you would do is click on compatibility, and it will ask you to compare it to another chart. And it'll give you some basic information about the Kuta point system between the charts. It'll also show the charts overlapping each other. If you're interested in Jaimini astrology, there's a Jaimini screen. If you are interested in looking at Muhurtas, there's a really wonderful module for looking at Muhurtas, for picking the right Muhurtas, and you can eyeball it by these green, when all these green ones line up here, that's going to be a good Muhurta. But of course, you really want to actually learn how to do Muhurtas well. But if you aren't able to do that, this can be a very good cheating way of doing it. Like, for example, when we see here Tuesday, November 15th, we get the Nakshatra, the Tara, the Tithi, the Nitya Yoga, all lining up in green, which is going to show that generally this is going to be a good day for some particular action. And you can even do Muhurta guidelines. You can pick what you want a Muhurta for, and it'll help you out in that regard. So Kala has a really great Muhurta program here. You can look at all the Vargas. So if you want to get a snapshot of all of the divisional charts, all you do is go to the Screens menu, come down to Shodasa Vargas, click on that. You're going to get all 16 Vargas showing up for you. And I'm sure a lot of other programs do that as well, but I do enjoy that one. You can look at the Sudarshan Chakra, which is what? Well, this is showing you how the Lagna for the moon from the Lagna and the Lagna from the sun all line up. So if you use that particular technique, that can be very helpful for you. And you can learn a lot from the Sudarshan Chakra. There are Tara tables, which are specifically related to using nakshatras for prediction. It's really a wonderful table to use. We also have a Varshavala, which is what? That's showing you the chart for the year. And if you know how to read Varshafal, we also have the things that you need for that. The Munta, the Varshapati, all the strengths, the Tajika aspects involved, Tajika aspects with orb. So this is really a wonderful program for numerous applications. Now, the things I enjoy most about this also relates to transits. So here's the transit screen. And what we have is a round wheel. And inside, we're going to have the birth chart of the individual. On the outside, we're going to have the actual transits as they move. So if we set this to weekly, we can just push the forward button, and it's going to show you how the planets in the sky by transit are moving over the natal planets. And when there's a conjunction of some import, or if there is an aspect between planets from the transiting planet to a natal planet, you'll see these lines that show up. And you can do it for Rashi aspects. So those are showing the Rashi aspects that are happening. The Tajika aspects. And now we've got them all. Graha aspects, Rashi aspects, Tajika aspects. Look at trines. We can even look at transits from transiting planets to other transiting planets. So there's numerous options that you have here with the transit screen. Now let's say you're looking for a particular transit. Well, this is great. One thing I really love about Kala is the transit hit list. So you click on that transit hit list, and if you want to find out when Mars is going to be in opposition to natal Jupiter, you can even pick the cusp, or to a transiting planet. All you do is pick what you are looking for, right? And then you go ahead and you will hit the Now button once you choose what is the timeline that you're thinking of. And what it does is it gives this whole list of, all right, here's when Mars will be in opposition to Jupiter, the natal Jupiter within the chart, over however many years you're searching. And you can do that with any planet and any combinations of planets. So if you know that there is a particular combination in a chart that's going to give difficulty or success based on reading the chart itself, and then you also know that there are particular planetary transits which will trigger that, then again, all you do is go to the transit hit list, you find what you're looking for, you set the dates and the time, or the dates really, it doesn't go into the time, and it will tell you when is that transit going to occur, which is wonderful because it gives you insights into when our karma is going to get activated by transit, which is very important whenever you're trying to do predictive astrology. Now going back to the main screen, there are some real basic things that we can consider, and Kala goes fairly deeply with its calculations. We're not going to get so much into that, but with the yogas, you can click on the Bhava yogas. It'll tell you all the Bhava yogas that are applicable to the chart from Brihat Parashar Shastra. You can go to Kora yogas. It'll find all the yogas that are occurring in your chart, specific to the chart you're looking at, and give you the descriptions, both from the ancient texts and also with a little bit of interpretation there, modern interpretation. You can look at what could possibly occur in the dashas of planets. So during the dasha Jupiter, associated with the fifth lord. And why do we say that? Because we see in this chart, Jupiter is with Mars, the fifth lord. So it finds interpretations that are also applicable to your chart. You can look at classical delineations, where it's going to take information from books like Brihat Jataka and so on, and tell you what does it mean to have the Sun in Scorpio, Mars in Sagittarius or Pisces, and so on, which will be applicable to your chart. You can look at the modern interpretations, which focuses mainly on issues with Rahu and Ketu, in signs, in houses, relationships of Ketu and Rahu with particular planets, both by Rashi aspects and conjunctions. So this is a very helpful screen. You can learn a lot just by studying charts in this regard. There's a screen for illness and accidents, combinations that give illness and accidents. Ideas of marriage and sexuality. Mental illness even in this chart. Luckily, doesn't seem to have any mental illness. Nature of house lords. So it'll go through each house lord and tell you what is the nature of that house lord related to the Lagna, or your ascendant. Spirituality. So if there are combinations for spirituality, it'll tell you this as well. Now the print options, there's quite a lot there. And you can print out just about anything, as you can see. You can print out the Varshafal, the Tara tables, Shad Bala, Dashas, even birth control. So this is always fascinating. Click on birth control. Well, I don't want to print it. But you could save it as a PDF as well. And what it'll do is it'll tell you astrologically when are times that if your physical fertility lines up with your astrological fertility, pregnancy is more likely to occur. And so you can use that to plan pregnancies, to help you in that regard, or to even avoid pregnancies, which is also equally important in an overpopulated world. Now, options. This is where it gets interesting. And we are going to do another video specifically on best dashas and best ayanamshas to use. But we've seen the chart and calculation options, where you can choose North Indian, South Indian, round wheel, You can highlight particular lagnas, pranapada, gatika, hora, bhava, aruda lagna. You can insert asteroids if you find asteroids interesting. You can also display the outer planets if you want. You can show the cusps or not. So right now, if you look, I've just clicked on display outer planets. And right now we've got cusps showing up. Well, if we don't want to see the cusps, we just click them off. When we hit OK, well, there are the outer planets now if you use them, and the cusps have vanished. So there's quite a lot of possibility here. Let's go back and reset this. So we want to get rid of the outer planets and put the cusps back in there, because that's what I like to use. You can do color options. And when I go visit Mr. Wilhelm, the software programmer, him and his wife, I do enjoy sneaking into his office and changing his his Kala settings to weird colors. I'm not sure he appreciates it, but what's life without a little bit of pranks and fun? You can use different fonts. So if you want to use the Kala glyphs, like I enjoy using, because the symbology of them is interesting to me, you can do that, or you can click that off, and it'll set them to the abbreviations. So let's put the Kala glyphs back on there. And you can customize other things too. Now, calculation options. These are all the possible things that you can do with Kala. You can pretty much set your astrological program to use whatever kind of calculation you want in particular. So this is important because too many people think that there's just one way of doing astrology. There's just one way of calculating Rahu or Ketu. There's just one way of calculating the planets, whether it's geocentric or topocentric. There's actually two. The fatal degrees of the moon. Do you want to use Saravali or Paladipika? The Trimsamsha. Do you want to use the Rashi, 30 degrees, or based on the Trimsamsha lords? These are two different things and two different options. Debilitation. Do you want to use the more accurate way, at least I perceive, to see that the moon is debilitated between 0 to 3 of Scorpio, and Mercury is only debilitated between 0 to 15 of Pisces? Or do you want to set it, like most people do, to moon of all of Scorpio and Mercury all of Pisces? Do you want to calculate temporal friendships simply from the Rashi chart? Or do you want to use the individual Varga charts? And again, this is not so easy to figure out unless you've done a lot of research into the why you might do either one of these. Okay, so you might want to use the standard settings that Kala gives if you trust Ernst Wilhelm, or if you have another teacher that says no, we need to use the individual Varga chart to determine temporal friendships. Well, you can go in and change that. So you see, even house systems with Bhava Chalita. Do you want to use the Campana system, the Plasta system, Regiomontanus, Sripati? Do you want the house cusp to be the middle of the house or the beginning of the house if you use the KP method? You can choose all these things if you know the reasons why you are doing this. Let's look at Ayanamshas. Whoa, what's this? These are all the possible Ayanamshas you can use. I'm not going to get too much into this in this video, but if you want to use Dhruva Galactic Center Middle of Mula Ayanamsha, you can. If you want to use Lahiri Ayanamsha, which is one of the most popular, you can. If you want to use Tropical Ayanamsha or Sri Yukteswara's Ayanamsha, you can. So these are all the possible Ayanamshas that you can use, which really explains the reason why you go to one astrologer and they give you a different dasha printout. You go to another one and they have a separate dasha printout. And you say, what's wrong here? How could this change? Well, it could change because there are a heck of a lot of variables. And it really depends on the kind of research an astrologer has done in regards to why they use the Ayanamsha they do. So you can use tropical Rashis, or you can use sidereal Rashis. You can use, for nakshatra calculations, the Dhruva equatorial longitude. And if you know what that means, that's actually a really good one to use. Or you can use the Dhruva ecliptic, or neither. It's up to you. So it's very customizable. For dashas, well, what year length do you want to use? Nakshatra, Savana, Sara, sidereal. With the Rashi dashas, what year length do you want to use? Same thing. Do you want to calculate the nakshatra dashas from the moon, the lagna, the sun? And you might think to yourself, well, obviously we'll use the moon because that's what we're supposed to use. Well, there are texts that do say things like, if the lagna is stronger then the moon, then you calculate dashas from the lagna. Or if the lagna lord is stronger than either one of those, then you calculate it from the lagna lord. So you have that opportunity if you want it, if you want to do some research and explore that. And you might find that one works better for another chart than the standard just using the moon. So you see there are many different things, many different options that you have here on Kala. So it's customizable. If you want to do tropical Vedic astrology, pardon me, sidereal Vedic astrology. If you want to try to look at some Western approaches or ideas, well, you can do that too. There are really wonderful screens, such as the Shad Bala screen, which breaks down the Shad Bala mathematically, because it's very important to understand how the graph of Shad Bala. So let's show you that. So if we want to put the graph here, we would right click, we'd go to the tables, we'd find Shad Bala graph. And this is going to show you the general graph that people use for Shad Bala. And we see that Mercury is pretty high here. Now if you want to really see how that Shad Bala is working down to its minute details, well, you just simply right click anywhere in the middle and you'll get this menu. You go over here to Shad Bala and it's going to break down every calculation, the Sthana Bala, Dig Bala, Kala Bala, Ayana Bala, Cheshta Bala, and so on, to show you minutely maybe this person has a stronger Sthana Bala than they do Ayana Bala or something of that nature. And that's important to note because each of the balas actually tells you something different. Sure, we're used to looking at, here's the final product, and that's going to be good for calculations such as the Lajatati Avashtas and so on. But if we want to really figure out what that planet's up to, we can't just say Mercury's through the roof. We have to know, is this person going to be able to stand strong with their Mercury, the Sthana Bala? Is this person going to be able to have proper direction with this Mercury? Is this person going to be able to time how they utilize this Mercury well? All this is broken down into the particular Bala. So if you're into that, we can see that it can give you good insights to have this option. Also, if you are interested in the yogas within Jaimini astrology, well, it's got a Yogoda table here for you. And if you know how to use this, it'll show you the strength of the different yogas within the chart. Also, one of the things I particularly enjoy about Kala is that if I want to know where these cusps are specifically, well, I can just right-click here and I can change that little box to Bhava Chalita. And then once I left-click on this center box, what's this got for me? Well, now it's giving me all the house cusps within the first Varga, the D1, the second Varga, the third Varga. It's telling me where each cusp actually is. So if I use cusps with any detail, now I know exactly where each cusp falls in the appropriate sign in the appropriate Varga. So it's really wonderful. You know, that's a particular aspect to Kala that's, you really don't want to miss it. Now the aspected planets in Rashi, what does this do? And the dignities and Vargas, these are also two things that you can't do without. So how do you get here? Well, you're going to right click on any box, you go to tables, you go to planetary aspects, so you get this chart. If you want dignities and Vargas, you do the same thing. Right click on one of these little boxes, click on dignities and Vargas. And what does this tell me? This gives me a snapshot of the dignity of every planet in every Varga. So if I want to know what's Jupiter up to in the 12th Varga, well, here's Jupiter. Scroll down until I get to the row of 12, and he's exalted there. So that's going to tell me quite a bit about how this Jupiter is functioning in the birth chart as I relate it to the 12th Varga. Now, if I want to know very specifically how each planet is getting aspected, and this isn't just the general, Mars aspects Mars aspects the 4th, the 7th, and 8th away. This is how strong is Mars's aspect actually to a planet, the way Brihat Parashara requires you to calculate it. So this is out of 60 points. So we can see that, let's see, Mars is aspecting the moon to 34 points out of 60. 34 points out of 60. Now we might say, well, that's odd because Mars and moon are directly opposite each other. Well, that's true, but to really understand the aspects between planets, you have to compare the degrees between the planets, not the houses. So this is why we see the moon being aspected by Mars to 34 points out of 60. Some people might get that wrong and say it's a full aspect, when really it's only about a half an aspect. Here we see that we have Saturn getting aspected by the Sun to 28 points out of 60. Well, the Sun's here in the 9th house from Saturn, so how could that be? Well, when you study Brihat Parashar Shastra and you read about the specific aspectual points and how to calculate them, you start to see that you could miss a lot if all you're using is the Sun aspects 7 houses away or only influences planets with it. Here we've got Saturn in the 5th from the Sun, and that Sun is sharing about 50% aspectual strength, 28 points out of 60. So this is a really important table to have. The dignities and vargas also extremely important. If we want to see general transits to the Rashi chart, well, again, let's set this to the Shodamsha, and we just right-click this little box here. If we want to see transits, we go to charts, and we click on transits. And this will show us transits related to the chart in question. So that's very helpful for snapshot transit techniques. If we want to explore Ashtaka Varga, well, we can get an Ashtaka Varga table. We can look at the Sarvashtaka Varga, the total for each sign and house. We can even do it for individual planets. If we want to look at the moon, we give individual planets. A few other important things. If we want to look at, for example, Charakarkas for Jaimini, we can pull that up. If we want to look at the Upagrahas, Duma, Vidyapati, Parvesha, we can pull that up and it'll tell us exactly where they are by degree and by sign. If we want to explore special lagnas, we have that. We've already discussed this. And one thing that a lot of people overlook is actually planetary relationships to each other. Too often we get caught up in the dignity of the planet just from the Rashi chart or into a particular Varga. But not too often do we actually consider, well, is the Sun acting like a great friend towards Mars? In this chart it is. The Moon is acting like an enemy towards Mars. So this can help you refine understanding how planets are impacting each other based on the distance they are away from each other. So on one hand, while you can have 2 planets, for example, for Mars, the Moon is a natural friend to Mars, certainly. But what about now, temporary, based on this relationship, the temporal relationship? Well, this Moon is going to act like an enemy towards Mars. So you don't necessarily just want to take the fact that they are natural friends. You also want to consider what is their temporary relationship. And that will color how this 1st and 7th house expression of karma will play out. So these are just some basic things that you can do to explore Kala. There are numerous other screens, some very detailed screens that you can get into. But for most astrologers, if you can master the things that I've just covered here, you're doing a very, very, very good job. And if you know the reasons why, say when you're looking at calculation options, that you're picking these different things, well, then you're also going to be probably a little more thoughtful astrologer, because you're not just going to be accepting something because someone told you. So really, if you get a program like Kala or any program where you have these kinds of options, and I'm sure there are other programs that also have similar options, make sure you try to think them through before changing anything. Not only will that allow your chart to be more accurate based on the way you function as an astrologer, but it'll also make you a more intelligent astrologer, because you will then know the reasons why there are these options here, and then you will have made an informed decision about why you choose the things that you do. So there's a lot of benefit to having a complicated yet intuitive, easy to use astrology program like Kala. All right, so that'll conclude basic rundown of some ways to use Kala, how to get your way around Kala, and so on. If you have an interest in Kala, I'll go ahead and put a link at the bottom of this video. So if you want to purchase Kala, you can find it down there. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section of this video. And if I can answer them, I will. I've been using Kala for a while, so I believe I probably can answer the questions. If not, well, I'll do some research to find out the answer, because that will only help me be a better astrologer too. So we'll both learn, which is really the best way. So go ahead and check the link down at the bottom for Kala, purchasing Kala, and you can download it. I think there's a downloadable option to get it immediately. You can also order a CD, so you have a hard copy of it. Kala, from what I know, I've got a PC, so I don't use Macs. Kala works on PC very well. It also works on Macs, but I think you might have to have a particular platform. I'm trying to think of what the name of it is. Many people have told me about it. Parallels, maybe, something like that. I don't know. I've never had a Mac, so I'm not sure. But if you have a Mac, you might need to run Parallels, if that's accurate. But whatever kind of program that allows you to run PC programs should work for you. All right, so thank you very much, and look forward to hearing your comments.